A young mother who lived in Lexington, Kentucky, was out on a one-night spree of making bad decisions until she came in contact with a man who shared her obsession. Little did she know this man was one with a knack for defenseless praise, and that their paths crossing would lead to her going missing for 6 months and very shocking discoveries. On January 3, 2019, three men, namely David, Isiah, and Brandon, who worked together on a night shift job, decided to release some tension by going out to have a couple of drinks in a bar. They hoped to have a lot of fun, which would include drinks, women, and the likes, notwithstanding the fact that on nights like these, people usually get what they bargained for, or probably get much more. On the other hand, 23-year-old Savannah Spurlock had lied to her mother that she needed her car to go pick some food, when in real time, she was actually going to pick up two friends of hers, namely Jocelyn Hutch and Dion Johnson, so they could have a night out. Savannah, who had a tough past few months ranging from the fact that she wasn't expecting twins, to the birth of her twins which happened to be her third and fourth children, to losing the children to her boyfriend after an undisclosed event happened at the hospital. Coupled with the fact that she had a pending court case for January 7, 2019, after being charged with driving under the influence or DUI, Savannah just needed a break, and this outing seemed to be really essential for her. Savannah and Jocelyn then drove to Dion's house, after which they parked along the street, with Savannah leaving her big purse behind and carrying a small clutch bag, before they entered into Dion's home, which saw them begin their pre-game drinking, before eventually heading to the bar at 1:30 a.m. They headed to a local bar called The Other Bar. However, the three men mentioned earlier found themselves in the other bar too, to drink Jack and Coke after going to a bar called Two Keys Bar, and leaving the bar for high-cost reasons. Savannah and her friends were having their own sets of drinks when they were met with another friend of theirs called Kayla Hamlin, who didn't take long before calling it a night, but not without taking a photo of them. Dion, too, had announced his intentions to leave early due to the fact that he had a court appointment the next morning, but Savannah and Jocelyn opted to stay back, claiming they would be just fine, and he went on his way. Meanwhile, Savannah's mother, Ellen Spurlock, who had realized that Savannah wasn't coming back with her car anytime soon, decided to report the car as stolen to the Richmond Police Department, who immediately swung into action looking for Savannah and the car, but were unsuccessful because Savannah was well out of their jurisdiction. Ellen then opted to put Savannah's friends on red alert, and the lookout for Savannah had begun. Back at the other bar, Savannah and Jocelyn had gotten into an altercation, one so serious that they had to be separated and threatened eviction by the bouncers of the club. Immediately after settling them, Savannah began flirting with some of the men in the bar, while Jocelyn decided she was done for the night and wanted to go home. She got a ride, but only after Savannah had assured her that she could make it home on her own. Savannah had continued flirting until she got to the table of David, Isiah, and Brandon, who were just about to take their second round of drinks. However, after a short time of drinking together, the group decided to quit the bar, but Savannah wasn't done partying, so she decided to join them wherever they were going. Brandon's and Isiah's houses were out of the question for continuing the party, owing to the fact that Brandon lived with his family, while Isiah's house had no furniture in it, so they settled for David's house, which was in Lancaster, Kentucky. The last time Savannah would ever be seen in a video happened when a nearby CCTV captured her walking with the three men to their various cars, where they would later drive to David's house, with David driving alone, while Savannah drove with the other two men who were going to take a longer route. Ellen Spurlock was eventually able to reach Savannah via FaceTime call, and she could recall seeing her with someone in the car she was in. Savannah promised to be back home the next day, claiming she would take a cab which would take her to the car before she would eventually drive home. After this, Savannah put her phone on flight mode to avoid being disturbed by Ellen one more time, a move she was bound to regret. The next day arrived, and Savannah was nowhere to be found. However, Ellen's car was found by a friend of Savannah's, and the stolen car report was called off, with the car being returned to Ellen. But Savannah still wasn't home. Even though it was normal for her to usually not return home immediately, the fact that her social media handles were dormant and no updates were forthcoming, actually kickstarted the worries with a missing person report filed to the Richmond Police Department immediately. The search had begun, with flyers of Savannah and broadcasts of the last footage recorded of her published all over the TV stations and newspapers, as well as appeals for the identification of 3 young men with her that day. The 3 men were eventually identified, with David being the first to be interrogated. The young man gave his account, claiming that they listened to some music together in which Savannah danced a little, and that basically all they did was drink more and dance before Isiah finally left the premises, as at that time he was in the bathroom vomiting due to the excessive drinking. He admitted there were some fooling around, but no one took advantage of Savannah. Even though she seemed weak and was going to pass out, he claimed to have taken her to bed with the intention of giving her a ride home in the morning. During the time investigators were questioning David, they obtained a search warrant for his house, truck, and his cell phone, all of which he willingly surrendered to them. They also looked for the presence of any nearby CCTV device close to David's house, any of which could back his story, since that was the last place Savannah was last seen. It was already 5 days of Savannah going missing, and the police decided to interrogate Brandon, one of the guys Savannah was out with on the day of the incident, and he gave much the same story David had, corroborating the fact that there was some element of body contact, but as far as he knew, none of them had intercourse with her. But while Brandon was getting at his story, the detectives pointed something irregular about it, which made him rethink.
They got a fucking misdemeanor.
Yep.
Abuse of a corpse. A misdemeanor. Class A.
And I've worked a case where
She was wrapped up in a fucking tarp in the back of a truck, and they dumped her.
I've worked one where the person provided the vehicle that the person used to move a dead body, and that person who provided the vehicle, knowing what it was going to be used for, is already out of jail, and they're out walking around right now. So, I mean,
It's time to fucking tell the truth.
Yeah, but that's
whatever's holding you back, and you think it's so bad.
nah. But
If you'll just tell us, it's probably really not that bad, because there really isn't anything that we haven't heard or seen of.
Yeah, but
That we haven't dealt with as far as when it comes to this kind of stuff.
the thing that we most was worried about was whether or not, you know what I'm saying, if she had alcohol poisoning or
Good.
there was anything wrong with her, you know, along those lines. That was the
If she
thing.
had too much to drink,
Yeah.
or what about if David was going to do something he probably shouldn't to a girl that wasn't awake and able to say no?
David had claimed to sleep on the couch, leaving the bed for Savannah. However, the couch had no recliner, meaning there was no possible way for one to sleep on it unless, of course, they would have to sleep while sitting. The investigators at this point knew Brandon had nothing to do with the disappearance, but wasn't letting them on in all he knew, so they applied a little more pressure. The investigators recounted Brandon's events, which involved people in the past who knew about a murder or were involved indirectly, mostly by conveying the body, and how they faced the law as though they were the murderers. The investigators then moved to Isiah in a bid to get his own version of the story. His story matched that of Brandon's, but the investigators felt he knew more, particularly now that David was becoming the main suspect, owing to the fact that he had a more considerable amount of time alone with her after they had left. However, Isiah refused to point fingers at David, claiming that even if Brandon knew David more, David didn't seem like one who would hurt her. According to him, David does keep to himself most times, but they got used to it. The investigators decided to search through the phones of Brandon and Isiah. Forensics also had a go at Isiah's SUV, and their findings corroborated with the story. On the other hand, a thorough search of David's house revealed some incriminating findings, which included packs of condoms, a rifle, knives, and splatters of blood on the ground. Usually, this should be enough to conclude he was the culprit. However, it wasn't, but something more interesting and particularly disturbing was found. It was a notebook which contained a handwritten letter by David himself. It read, "How do you explain the feeling of nothingness to a normal person, that death befalling on all those around you has no effect? I felt so alone, so damaged that I've created fake personas around everyone I know hoping to fit in, to feel accepted. It only makes me angrier. I keep the dark, true side of myself hidden in the deepest places of my mind and have done so successfully for years, hell, my whole life. I feel no true love for anything now that I know what I really am. I see a greater need to hide my true self, but I just want to be free. I stay in a constant state of aggravation. Nothing seems to help anymore. How do you look for your mother in the eyes and tell her you're a born psychopath? That she gave birth to a monster? Someone who wouldn't care a bit to squeeze the last breath of life out of another human, or plunge a knife into their chest and smile about it? This seemed to be the manifesto the investigators had been looking for, hence they took David a little bit more seriously. However, there was still no concrete proof, and all they had now was still based on speculation. The investigators finally had access to CCTV footage close to David's place, and it captured him loading his truck with 2 black bags. On the day the house was inspected, it was sparkling clean. Hence, the investigators became confused at this point if David was just loading his truck with garbage from his cleaning, or he was actually cleaning up his murder act. The results from the swab test done earlier had finally arrived, and there was still no evidence to hold David or any of the other men accountable for the death of Savannah, as the blood samples neither matched David nor Savannah. The police extended their search to the house of David's parents, Alan and Ultra Sparks, but still nothing to show. They even went as far as interrogating David's lifelong friend named Haley Hinko, who was serving term at a local jail, and she reassured them that David wasn't a person of such nature and that he was a nice person.
We're just wanting to basically get a character, how his character is, how he was.
He's an amazing dude, for real. I went to jail when my little boy was almost 1. He took care of my kid. He has my kid's name on his arm. He's always been a good dude. He's always come to my rescue when I needed him.
Okay.
He's a good dude, for real. He's went to church with his mom and dad's always went to church with my mom.
Mm-hmm.
His uncle used to be a pastor at my church.
Okay.
Was there anything, you told us multiple times he's a good dude, helped you, and we get that, but was there any time that he might have said or done anything that was kind of out of character for him, and you'd be like, man, that's kind of weird coming from David?
No.
Never seen him do nothing or get real pissed off at somebody, or?
He's never really got angry with me. I mean, I've broke his heart 10,000 times, and he still comes back the same way he left.
Basically making sure that, or just asking you, did he ever distribute any behaviors that was like, he's a little weird?
No.
Anything like that?
He's an awkward person until you get to know him, you know what I mean? He comes off really weird, but once you get to know him, he's not.
David's attorney opted to clear the air on the letter found in David's house, claiming it was written at a time when David was faced with depression. The rigidity of the case made it a hard one to crack, and the community were left wondering what happened to Savannah. Was she alive and somewhere hidden? Or was she dead? And if she was dead, who killed her? Savannah's mother had started making rounds on the television stations, claiming her daughter would ghost for this long if she wasn't taken against her own will. She also begged Savannah to come back home if she was alive, and that everyone missed her. Time had passed, and people were beginning to go back to their normal way of life, with David moving in with his parents, and Isiah and Brandon moving in with their father. Savannah's friends and family were left to wonder what had happened to their friend and daughter respectively. All hope seemed lost until this breakthrough arrived. On July 10, 2019, Richmond Police Department got a call from the attorney representing David's parents about a strong foul odor coming from a strawberry patch in their backyard, and that the police needed to come check it out right away. However, something noteworthy was happening at the time this event occurred. David Sparks drove himself to the police station, sealing his car, and on entering the station, he said he was going to need a lawyer. Upon arrival, investigators discovered a foul odor and disturbed ground in the backyard of the property. They began digging in the area, eventually uncovering human remains buried in a shallow grave. The body was wrapped in plastic bags and secured with tape, indicating an attempt to conceal the crime. The Kentucky State Police, alongside the FBI, cordoned off the area to conduct a detailed forensic examination. Personal items belonging to Savannah Spurlock were found near the body, which included clothing and other belongings she had on the night she disappeared. The investigators decided to invite Alan and Alta to give their account on what they found and how they found what they found. This included long hours of question and answer sessions in which Alan described how he was working on the backyard when he started perceiving the weird odor. His wife was also interrogated and she gave her own account which matched that of her husband. The remains were quickly transported to the state medical examiner's office, where they were identified as Savannah Spurlock through dental records. This confirmation marked a significant breakthrough in the months-long investigation into her disappearance. During the autopsy, the tapes used to bind Savannah matched those found in David's room, and the backpack found had blood which matched both Savannah and David's DNA. However, because of insect tampering and decomposition of body, investigators could not ascertain the cause of death, but it was ruled as a homicide confidently, based on where the body was found and the attempt to conceal it. David Sparks was finally arraigned for the murder, in which he pleaded guilty. This earned them a minimum of 15 years in prison for murder and 12 additional years for tampering with evidence and another 12 for abuse of corpse. These sentences were to run concurrently. The term of 50 years was agreed upon by attorneys because they could not prove beyond reasonable doubt as to why he killed her. David did not deny the act, but he, however, refused to give a reason for it. David is now serving his term at the Southeastern State Correctional Complex in Kentucky, where he would be eligible for parole in 2039. If you enjoyed this story, please like and let us know your thoughts in the comment section. Also, do not forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so, and turn on post notifications so as to not miss any of our jaw-dropping episodes.